As the saying goes, a child shall lead them. And right now with UConn, this is Liam McNeeley's team. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available where you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to say 100% big thank you to everyone. This podcast has grown so much, and it's because of fans like you that we're able to give you this great UConn content. We're proud to say you were the only daily podcast covering both the women's and men's teams, the basketball capital of the world. And we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. So to show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project. We're helping send kids to UConn games. We're also making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return. When new customers place a $5 bet, you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, this is what I would consider a mini pod. I'm getting ready to take my wife out for a nice night out. Monday to Tuesday is usually our time to go do stuff because she works on the weekends. But let's talk about whose team this is now and not mince words, because it's Liam McNeeley's. There may be some fans out there or even players who would argue with me otherwise. Well, you're wrong. And I guess you're not wrong if you have an opinion. But after a couple nights ago's 26.8 rebound performance, 4 assists, by the way, you got to think the conversation is over. Liam has shown not only that he can score in a variety of ways, but also that he thrives when the stakes are the highest. UConn's offense has been defined over the last couple of years by its collective contributions, right? There hasn't been a one player that you could say, oh, that guy is, you got to stop him or there's no way you can beat UConn. And to this day, they still are. Like, they still are a collection. But so yes, Alex Karaban, Hasson Diarra, solo ball, whichever center is playing, every other player still affects winning and makes huge plays to get us done, to get us get us a W. But when it comes to creating shots, taking over crucial moments, I don't think you can point to a performance by a freshman in recent memories that is better than Liam's. He stepped into that role seamlessly. I tweeted out, I think at the 8-minute point in the end of the second half, I said, Liam McNeeley, I said, Dan Hurley has found his Cam Spencer clone, and it's Liam McNeeley. And after the game, Coach Hurley himself said Liam was born to replace Cam Spencer. So if that doesn't give you confidence right there, first off, I was right. That was very nice to hear. But also to the player. Forget about me. Who cares if I'm right or wrong? I'm wrong half the time anyway. But with Coach, him saying, like, this dude was meant to be Cam Spencer or play that role, that's got to give him immense confidence going into Big East season in the Xavier game on Wednesday. And yet it wasn't so long ago that some people were clowning Liam, saying he wasn't as good as advertised, absurdly, and that he was just getting cardio out there, where that was like a Duke tweet, so corny. And let's get real for a second. The game UConn plays is complex. The speed, the reads, the processing. And that's not even talking about the conditioning it takes to be in these kids' shoes. So all these critics who couldn't comprehend how any of this works from their couch, Liam has proven he's more than ready, and his versatility gives UConn the kind of alpha scorer they need to complement the rest of their balanced attack. We've seen players in similar roles falter under pressure, but Liam's ability to distribute, attack the rim, knock down open shots, both inside and out, little floaters, NBA threes, the ability to get out and transition, dump it off to Jalen Stewart, kick it out to Jalen Stewart. And guess what? He's just a freshman. He's only going to get better. The sky is the limit for this kid. Okay, when we come back, I'm going to tell you the plan for unlocking Aidan Mahaney. I know some of you are down on him. I know some of you want to just get him out of the lineup, and that may be coming. But I still think there's a chance, and I'm going to tell you how. We'll be back. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Sorry about that. And you're back on Locked On UConn. Apparently, I wanted to start the show over. So if you just got an earful of the intro and you were scared by it, especially if you're just listening to the audio, I apologize profusely. That sucks. I hate when I press the wrong button. Kind of like a soundboard here with radio people, if you know anything about it. So yeah, one quick little button and it could mess you up. I'm exhausted, and I'm so looking forward to going out tonight. But at the same time, I'm like, I literally could go take a nap. So I also want to talk about how my setup is changing a little bit. If you're from the Meriden area, you can see this is my Ed Walsh All-Stars jersey, and number 32. But I wanted to display the Ed Walsh, not the number. If anyone's if anyone played baseball, that was my first love and was pretty damn good at it. Our team was awesome. Shout out to a few of my teammates that I'm still friends with. One who lives down here, Micah Casey, Nikki Casey brothers. I played with Nick Poirier and some other folks. I'm trying to think of Ty Bongiovanni, who played baseball at Central. His dad was a great pitcher. Trey Bongiovanni was on our team, I think, 1 year when he was young. Some really good baseball players. God, I can't think of everybody off the top of my head. Anyway, a lot of fun. Great memories. Remember the All-Star team, Josh Asplin, Ricky Fritch, those guys. Jay Moss. Jay Moss is older than me, but I have to give him a shout out. Played with his brother, whose name is escaping me, was on that team. But anyway, let's get back to the basketball. How do you unlock Aidan Mahaney? One might ask, and that wasn't a segue to get my train of thought. I said this a couple days ago. If I go back into my Twitter account and I talk to a few UConn fans who are, frustrated, but being respectful, it's like, this guy doesn't have it. He's not who we thought he was. And I don't disagree to a certain extent. And I know he's made some mistakes, but what I think we should possibly do is, and I hope Dan and company are listening to maybe this, or they already have this in their head, because I have a really hard time thinking about Dan and Mahany and Luke thinking that anybody can make mistakes, but their evaluation skills are so on another level. I don't think they missed on this kid per se. But what I will say is, it's very possible that they did and they could have, because it's well documented that their eyes were on Nick Timberlake, and he went to Kansas, and then we got Cam Spencer. And why did that make sense for us? And why was that a disaster for Kansas? And if you notice at the end of last year's season, not a lot of people want to say this because it's not popular, and maybe you get dragged on Twitter because it's not the cool thing to say. But when Nick Timberlake played in the NCAA tournament, and when he started to play free, because that Kansas team was not going to be a national title contender last year with all the injuries they had, it just was a terrible roster. Even though they put some effort into it in time, they just swung and missed. But Nick Timberlake actually played okay down the stretch, and he was actually a big part of some of their best wins at the end of the season. And he's a big reason why they didn't get beat in the first round by Samford. And I don't know if they were utilizing him correctly at first. And so there's still a ton of time for Dan Hurley and company to unlock Aidan. And what I think I see from Aidan is if you go back and watch the St. Mary's tape, he was never a point guard at St. Mary's, ever. Like, he just wasn't. He was always their scorer. He was always the change of pace guy that could get hot. They had a kid that's a Lithuanian point guard from named Augustus Marcelonis, 6'4", very similar to like Tristan's build, European player, very savvy. And he was able to facilitate Aidan in a very advantageous position, coming off having people trail him on screens, kind of like the position that you see Solo doing. And I'm not saying you do this and replace Solo ball, for God, no. But what I'm saying is that like for 4 to 8 minute stretches during this Big East season, where let's face it, this is going to be the proving grounds of if this kid can actually contribute in the NCAA tournament, because I'm going to knock on wood here, but this Big East is down. And you're not playing Marquette every night. You're not playing at Creighton every night. You're going to get some quote unquote nights off. And what I mean by that is not to shut off the brain and not do what Dan Hurley teams do, but these aren't Madison Square Garden against Gonzaga games. When you're playing at Seton Hall, when you're playing or Seton Hall comes to see you, you're playing this Xavier game, which would have been tougher, but now Zach Freemantle's out. There's going to be some time to experiment and still win games comfortably, is what I'm saying. So I think you can get a glimpse of what this kid can be if he's unlocked. And because if not, Ahmad Noel is going to be returning from injury and he's going to take over those point guard minutes. And I think it's imperative that UConn carves out a role for Aidan, even if it's like 8 minutes at a time where he comes in to spell Solo and he is essentially the two guard. And you can always use Liam as a point forward. I mean, Liam was playing point forward at Madison Square Garden the other night and just took over. So I think if you allow Aidan to work off the ball and give him less responsibility with reading the plays and just going out and trying to score, I think that is going to unlock him to just play freely and just see things and do them. I think he's thinking too much about what his next pass should be, what his next move should be, versus just balling out and having a little. I've said this on the show before. The UConn offense is very Jazz-like because you can improvise, but it's got to be in the framework of the system. So I think right now, to use an analogy, I think they have Aidan playing the trumpet when he's probably a better, saxophone player, where he can really just flow and get after it. And I think that should be the energy that we're going after, him and not really and trying to pump him up, not tell him that he's terrible or that we made a mistake or that he's Nick Timberlake 2.0. I think this Big East schedule is going to provide an opportunity to experiment with this approach. I really do. I think if Dan Hurley can give those stretches where Aidan is 4 to 8 minutes, where he's not the total focal point of the offense, but the primary part, and then it works off of that, running off of screens, attacking mismatches, maybe putting him in a pick and roll a little bit, because I'm not gonna compare myself. I always make fun of my dad when he's like, when you watch Tiger Woods play golf, and then he'll compare himself to Tiger Woods. So I'm gonna do something very similar. I'm gonna compare myself to Aidan Mahaney, and Aidan Mahaney is 1,000 times better basketball player than me. But what I will say that I share with him is that I am not a good ball handler. I am a very good shooter of the basketball. I think I'm a very good passer. I think if anyone that's ever played with me knows that I was shoot first more, but as I've gotten older, obviously if I can get one of my teammates open, I'm doing that. So what I'm saying is that in my peak athleticism, probably in my early 20s, if you gave me a ball coming off a screen and I could set my feet, I could take anyone to the hole off of one step. What I couldn't do was create the opportunities to dribble drive, because I'd get my pocket picked, or someone would or I would kind of get past someone, but they would pick me from behind or tap it behind. I just wasn't strong enough with the basketball. It's not a skill set that I was able to hone. And I don't think that that's going to be part of Aidan's game going forward. I think he'll get better, but it's not something that you just change during the season. And so I think if we can maintain that clear role where he's a good bench piece that comes off the bench, 8-10 minutes tops, and maybe he gets 6-7 points as like a little microwave. And if he's rolling, then you leave him in. If he's having a tough time, you take him out. And then you try to get the next opportunity. I really do think that's how you unlock them, and we'll see if that's going to be the case. When we come back, Samson Johnson's out. What that means for UConn and what that means for the bigs up front and how these lineups could change a little bit. We'll talk about it. It's that time of year, my friends. I am as excited about this as I've been about any college football in a very long time. The college football playoff is back, but now with a 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern time, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns. Horns down, at a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. All right, back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Zanetto. You can find me on X at Mark Zanetto CBB or at Locked On UConn. X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Find all of the Locked On UConn socials on that. We have not entered into the blue sky world. I don't think we'll end up doing it just because I don't know if I can handle another social media platform. Anyway. All right, look. Really bad fall from Samson Johnson. From all intents and purposes, everyone said he was knocked out cold, that he's in concussion protocol. But then he was also on the bench wearing his jersey under bright lights, which is not the best habit to have when it comes to having being in concussion protocol. So maybe it was a mild concussion. I doubt he'll play against Xavier on Wednesday. Or as my friend Wes Miller calls it, Xavier, just to kind of mess with Xavier a little bit. Nice job of the Bearcats winning the crosstown shootout, first one in his career. So shout out to Wes Miller and company. I hated Cincinnati for the majority of my life. And then when Wes went there as a friend, I had to say, I'll put the hate away and say, go Bearcats for them. But if UConn ever plays Cincinnati, it's, F the Bearcats after that. Anyway, our old AAC foes, the old Big East guys. Samson and Tarris. Tarris right now has an incredible opportunity to get extended minutes because he's a physical presence in the paint. He's capable of protecting the rim. If you saw him against Gonzaga, I really feel like this is an opportunity for him to play almost 30 minutes a game. Yusuf coming in and giving about 8 or 6, 7, 8 minutes just to spell him. I think he's my friend Big Larry, who I think is going to be called Skinny Larry very soon. Good job to you, man. 205. You're going to be under 200 very soon. I don't think people are going to recognize you. But Skinny Larry said that Yusuf Singari remind him of the Worm. And I love that comparison, man, because at 6'11", he just goes after it, scrappy, playing some good defense, provides energy, defense in short bursts. Don't be surprised if Dan Hurley leans into a little small ball lineups with Alex Karaban at the 5. Another person that I want to mention, because I didn't mention him on the live show, is I thought Jay Ross gave us some good minutes against Gonzaga in terms of playing defense. Really got a steal and a breakaway, but I thought his presence, his length was something that obviously Dan loves. But he was able to kind of guard Nembhard a little bit. And I love that. I think if my memory serves me, I think Liam guarded him a little bit too. Like I think that's going to be the key for UConn down the stretch is when they play these guards who have better matchups against our smaller guards, they just put a wing on, and then they hide the other, the guard, whether it's Haas or whether it's Aidan or whether eventually it's Ahmad or Solo on a lesser offensive player. And they can kind of help with the defensive rotation. So I think the stretch is pretty crucial for UConn because they're missing pieces, whether it's Samson out. That it could mean that we're going to get some, I guess, obviously get some more run from Yusuf. But I do think that this is crucial for a couple people. One, it's crucial for Ahmad Noel to get back on the court. He was starting to gain some mojo. Then he hurt himself, got kind of jammed up. And I really feel like this is crucial for Aidan, because if Aidan doesn't get going soon, then I think Dan is going to be justified in just kind of parking him on the bench and seeing what happens if there's any injuries and whatnot. So one guy that I would love to see, and it's just because he always seems to impact the game, even though he's only played against some of the bye game guys. I'd love to see Isaiah Abraham get some love and get some run for defensive purposes when we play a bigger team. But I don't think that's going to happen. But he may get some run because we blow people out in the Big East. So that's it for today, guys. Mini pod, Liam McNeeley officially taking the reins of this team. He's the new Cam Spencer. His emergence is a huge step forward for this UConn team. The three-peat is back on. Aidan Mahaney needs to be unlocked, and I think he can do that as long as there's a clear path for Dan Hurley to make it happen by playing him to his strengths. And finally, Tarris Reed, massive opportunity to prove himself as UConn's anchor in the paint and be a key front court minutes that are up for the grabs. Not because Samson's just out, but because I think he can show his impact, how impactful he can be with no kind of outlet to go to Samson. So thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. We're asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, make sure those toughness meters always rise. And as always, go Huskies.